Good morning, everybody. My name is Shimeon. It's a biblical name, probably you know Simeon, but it's the same. Our company is called Focus Management. This work has been done in collaboration by the three of us, Professor Boaz Ronen from Tel Aviv University, and the lady in the group, Miss Shani Azaria. Our company has been working in the Israeli market and also abroad for about 25 years. And we've been involved in about 200 projects in really a huge variety of industry systems, large ones, small ones. So we have quite an experience. And in recent years, we were involved in the improvement project in the low-code system in Israel. Everything is fine because no echo, because maybe it echoes in my ears only, but fine. So let's go. I want to state first that what I'm describing not necessarily actually applies to your system. I just want to describe what we have done is the specific system of the Israeli justice system. Of course, the principles are the same everywhere, but maybe details may change. This is the profile of a typical district court in Israel. 13,000 incoming cases annually, a lot of work in process. That was, of course, the starting point, 15,000 cases open in the court. For each case, for each trial, you have, on the average, 3 pre-trial sessions, meetings, and 7 evidence meetings. These ones are quite short, and those are lengthy. And to make things more difficult, you have 87 different types of cases, procedures, and you have a real burden, something very heavy, of having 20 mega cases per year, which only those 20 cases actually require 50% of the capacity of the court. So it's unbelievable difficult. Most of them are run not only by one judge, by 3 judges. So it's quite a burden on the court. On the average, you have 4 parties, adversaries per case, and we have on an average 52 judges, where the largest one, which is in Tel Aviv, actually the economical center of Israel, we have more than 60, 65, with a broad spectrum of skills and specializations. And naturally you have a lot of uncertainty in terms of meetings, number of witnesses, and the probability to be able to close the case in settlement. And this is something that we always try to get. Whenever we get a settlement between the parties, which is not forced of course, but a settlement that everybody agrees upon, then we, of course, don't waste the time of the court on something that can be done outside the court. So for this complex system, can we use the usual tools? Not necessarily. We have to think for some additional tools, of course, using and basing ourselves on the existing one. The justice system has some inherent complexity which doesn't exist in other cases. First, we have quite a low flexibility of being able to change processes and procedures because most of them require changes of legislation or regulation. Of course, there is some things that can be changed by having, a directive coming from the president of a specific court or the chief justice who is the president of the Supreme Court, but it's not, those are the small changes, small improvements that can be introduced by directives. In the court system, you have the autonomy of the judge. You can't, force him to do something that he doesn't believe in. And we have, among the judges, we have this tendency to be professional in the field of justice. They pride themselves of being professional in this field, but they are not the best managers, to say the least. In the justice system, you have something which is very peculiar, that 50% of the participants are acting constantly against the system. Not to help it, but rather to jeopardize the system, the process. And obviously, we need something different. I want to tell you that we made a survey, and the problems are similar everywhere. You see, we have checked it in various countries, and we have everywhere the tendency to have more demand because our life gets more complicated, economy gets more complicated, and we need more intervention from the justice system. We have increasing cost of running the system, long lead time, very long lead times. Sometimes in Israel you have cases, civil cases, that may be as long as 9 years, 10 years, something which is unacceptable, obviously. We encounter diminishing throughput and real dissatisfaction from the public. And we must always remember that wherever we delay the justice, let's say, for instance, in a case that is finished only after 9 years, justice is obviously denied. This is not the justice anymore. Can we solve it by pure mathematics? No. We did something else, and those are the results of our implementations. We, on the average, reduce lead time by 47%, increase at the same time the throughput, and in spite of the usual belief that by doing processes faster, you actually might hurt the quality, jeopardize it, but it's on the contrary. The judicial quality was improved, and I'll explain why later on. This is the typical process in Israel, let's say a district court. These are the cases coming. We have some sessions, what we call a pre-trial, and at the end of this phase we have a final pre-trial session, and it's very important. I'll go and explain lengthy why it's so important. And then we go to the evidence, the hearings, what we call, summation and ruling, and we are finished. And it's very important to try and find settlements, agree on a settlement instead of continuing in this process. For instance, a clever, smart judge would try to, at least at this point, state to the parties what is an agreement that everybody agrees upon, what are the disagreements, and a nice hint what is his position about this issue, and usually a lot then understand the message and get a settlement. Actually, out of the 100% cases, incoming cases, only 40% go to this second phase, the hearings, the evidence hearing, and only 10% out of the 100 actually have a verdict. What are the challenges? They are obvious. We have to find a way increasing the throughput, shortening lead times, reduce the complexity, and tackle this poor public trust and the cost of doing business. Because if the performance of the justice system is poor, it reflects on the economy, and everything gets more expensive, lengthy, and it's really a bad effect on the economy. Let's go through the methodology of TOC and see how it can be implemented in the court system. Step number one, determine the goal of the system. Since we are not lawyers, and obviously we are not judges, all of us, the three of us, none of us has any we are not lawyers and not judges. We were sitting down with our team, and we decided, made it clear, defined that the system is to provide ruling. So this is, in a way, a revolution, because the goal of the system, if we define it this way, is not to bring justice. This is not the goal. According to this definition, the court system is a machine, an apparatus for bringing rulings. This is a definition. And of course, it affects everything else. Justice is done, or should be done, in the global sense. Not just looking for a specific case and do the best justice you can do, but you can have a look what happens, what justice are you doing to the whole public. So citing Lord Woolf from the UK, he was saying you should always take into account the need to allot resources to the other cases. There are judges that say, I don't care. I will work on this case as much as needed in order to bring the absolute justice. Wrong. Because whenever you are doing justice in one case, you are doing injustice to a lot of others that are waiting outside and don't get the response they need. They want ruling. They are not probably looking for the absolute justice. In our methodology of the TOC, step number 2 should be to decide on performance measures that, of course, are in synchronization with a goal. So we are looking for the throughput of the system, monitoring, controlling the number of closed cases per period, per month or per year, looking at the operating system, inventory, which is the number of open cases in the system, the lead time, the quality, and the due date performance. This is a portfolio of measures that we think covers the performance of the system as a whole. Number 3, according to the TOC methodology, is to try and identify the constraint. Who is choking the system? And in this case, it's quite obvious. The constraint, the bottleneck of the system, are the judges. It's obvious, no? Have you seen a system, a justice system anywhere that the bottleneck is not the judges but somebody else or something else? No, probably. Okay, so we have to deal, if you want to improve the system, you have to deal with the way that the judges are doing their work. And of course, we are looking not at their professional process, but rather at their administrative process. What we tackle is the administrative process, and there is a lot to be done. Fourth step in this methodology is, once you understand what is a constraint, you have to decide or find ways to exploit the constraint. Having this precious resource that has not enough capacity, you have to find a way how to extract as much as you can from this existing resource. And this has two sides. One of them is to look for the ineffective time, to increase the effectiveness of the resource. Sorry, the efficiency of the resource, which is what we call the ineffective time. Actually, Ken Miller was, in the previous lecture, he was talking about this wasted time. So here we are talking about the ineffective time, just pure waste of the time of the judge, who is the bottleneck of the system. So something, we cannot live with this. And everywhere, unfortunately, everywhere, not only in this system, we see that the ineffective time is at least 50%. At least 50%. The judge is doing something which brings no value to the system, no value to the public, just wasting time. And we have to find ways how to deal with this waste. And then we have to look and ask ourselves, is a judge really working on the right things? This side, we try to understand, is he working in a proper way? And on this side, we are dealing with the issue, is he working on the proper things, the right things? And here, for instance, we don't have absolute freedom to select our work, but of course, we should be very sensitive and try to prevent the judge from working, for instance, on something that can be resolved with alternative dispute resolution, mediation, etc. And strive and really be very conscious about the importance of reaching settlements. If you identify, for instance, that the case that you receive is actually false, there's no reason to deal with this case, just put it aside. I don't want to deal with this case. It's obvious that it's false. So these two mechanisms, dealing with efficiency and left-hand side is dealing with effectiveness. Doing both, we improve the exploitation of the judge. Step number 5. Once you achieve this important exploitation, now you ask yourself, can we get a little help from the system surrounding the judge? Previously, we have been thinking, trying to improve the judge's work itself. But now we are thinking maybe we can get some help from the rest of the system. If the judge is the bottleneck and he actually dictates the throughput of the system, then it's quite natural. It makes sense that everybody should be subordinated to the judge and try to help him as much as possible to do his job in the best way. The lawyers and the prosecuted are subordinated to the judge. It's reasonable to say that, I'm busy now because I'm working on 3 other cases. Let us postpone the hearing, or you have a no-show, and so on and so forth. It's bad. You have to. Everybody has to understand we are subordinated to the judge. We see lots of issues with the police, bringing prisoners and so on. End of the game. Experts, those experts that you have in civil cases, the system encountered lots of problems with them because usually you are using the best professionals available in the country, and you hear stories, sorry, I'm busy, I have to go to a conference in Lithuania, and so on and so forth. End of story. We have a list of those experts that are recommended, that can be chosen from this list, and if you try to play with the court, you are erased from this list. And we have also legal aids, which we'll discuss really soon. We have at the end of the pretrial phase, we have a mandatory comprehensive pretrial session. It's in a way a kickoff for the second phase of the hearings. In this session, we actually prepare what we call the complete kit for the next phase. What is a complete kit? This is a new notion, that says that for every activity that you do, there is a list of those things that you have to make sure that they exist before you start this activity. And for instance, in order to enter the hearing meeting, there is a list, and I'll show it in a minute, a list of things that you must make sure that they exist. So these things in the list, the items in the list, are those items that are must-have. This is in contrast with some other things that are nice to have. And if something from these must-have items is missing, you probably will have to stop the process, say, aha, something is missing, I have to ask to bring it to me, and you waste a lot of time, of your time, and the parties and the witnesses of the whole system. So a good manager would always insist that we don't start a process between the agreed upon list of must-have items. Don't waste your time. This is one of the greatest sources of wasted time. The tendency to say, it will be okay, he promised me to bring it in a week's time, forget it. Be very consistent, not aggressive, but assertive, and say, sorry, we can't start the hearing phase, please complete the kit. And from our experience, once it's a norm in the system, everybody is really relieved. Aha! How were we so foolish in the past working with an incomplete kit? It's not easy, because you can't be, the only crazy person trying to fight everybody. Everybody has to accept that it's really a wrong procedure, working with something that you know a priori in advance that you won't be able to continue the process. So please make sure that everybody is working with a complete kit. In this mandatory meeting, we actually look at the list of adversaries, and sometimes the list of parties, and sometimes some of them, there is no use of having them being part of the trial, so try to erase them from the list of parties. Try to reduce dramatically the number of witnesses, go through it, what is the purpose of bringing up this witness, and so on, and cut it. Plan your witnesses' appearance and schedule the final the summation meeting, and try to do it orally rather than written summations. The norm in the system was always nearly everybody preferred to have the lawyers coming with a written summation. It's a waste of time, really a lot of waste, and you miss the opportunity, the judge misses the opportunity to ask questions. If it's orally, they are standing before you and providing their message, you can ask questions and clarify things. But if you get a lengthy text, it's too late. So you'd better recommend the system to use the oral summation rather than the written ones. Let us look at the mechanisms that we introduce in order to subordinate the whole system to the judges. As we started, hearings were not planned. And typically, we had 60 cases on the desk of the judge, and the desk is also the computer, okay? Because during our project, they introduced the paperless court. It's really an expensive system, and which initially put a lot of burden on the system, but now it works, but not in the best way. So we still have the inventory is still there, and also what we learned, the judges don't rely on the computer, and they have their own copies of the cases somewhere in a store, and so on. So it's not real paperless court. As we discussed previously, we have two phases, the pre-trial phases, and those are very short sessions, typically 10 minutes, 20 minutes. You clarify things and you go, okay, let you go in order to do your homework. So all these sessions, on the average, total to a 1 hour duration. The next one is more lengthy, and let's say it's 4 days. And as I told you, not all the cases do enter this phase, only 40%. And since those processes are different, both in the effort that you have to put in it and also in the content, we should think about a distinct solution for each of them. Let's understand first how they were working previously. In the past, actually, let's say, just for the simplicity, to have it into one slide, that the judge is working on 18 cases at one time. Okay, 18 cases are open. So he is working, let's say, on a case, the first case, case A. In his calendar, he already has the schedule for the rest of the 17 cases. Now we are sitting today, discussing, hearing the witnesses and so on. So we need another meeting. Let's open our calendars. When is the next available time? Here. So let's put the next meeting of the first case at the first open slot in the calendar of the judge. And we are discussing tomorrow this one, and probably the next meeting will be here. So what actually is the outcome, that it's not 18 days, but it's rather something like 8 or 9 months from one hearing to the next one. And if you have, on the average, four hearing meetings, then you have 4 times 9, which is 33. So this by itself is already 3 years, if you work it this way. So maybe we'd better finish first one case and then go to the other one. A, finish. B, finito. C, etc. So in this case, the judge at one time is working only on one of them, and the rest are waiting. Okay, and the lead time for the case is only 3 days in this scheme, or about a very short time in reality. But the question is this solution feasible? And we'll discuss it in a minute. Another possibility is to have, you know what, not day by day, but the next week. Here we are discussing this file today. Let's schedule the next week by next Sunday, and then another one for the forthcoming one, and so on and so forth. Okay, we called it continuous hearing. It's not really day by day. It's in a way a continuous hearing, because it's also the lead time is quite sure. After the three sessions, you are finished about here. So what is the problem with the day-to-day hearing? Is that actually you have to convince the lawyers, which are themselves very busy, to come day after day to your court, and not everybody is so pleased. Not the lawyers, not the witnesses, and so on. So let's try to analyze our conflict. day by day, day after day, is obviously very short. But this weekly hearing, what you get as a benefit, that you don't have cancelled meeting. What? Okay? Because if you force the parties, the lawyers and so on, to come day by day, something pops out and they say, sorry, I couldn't make it, and probably sometimes they have a really justifiable reason, and you waste your time on days that the court could not act. So how do we resolve this conflict? And our approach is, first of all, try to think about being selective. Maybe this solution is good for some cases and this for other types of cases. And it's wrong, it's right. Because day-to-day hearing is good for those mega cases, like bringing a president to court or a vice prime minister and so on, lots of hearings, and it takes months. So if you want ever to be able to finish this kind of mega trials, you'd better do it day by day, day by day. And since it's so important, actually the parties agree that they have to be there. Otherwise, if you don't agree to come day by day, please don't be the lawyer of this prime minister. So this is a differentiation. And according to this differentiation mood or approach, we suggest those very short meetings will take place from 8 to 10 in the morning. Tuck, 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 tuck. The judge is going through those cases, and since there is no too much load of these meetings, the pre-trial meetings, so he schedules them the next available slot in the morning time. And then the evidences meetings start at 10 and finish until 5 in the afternoon. And probably the scheduling, we have to use one of the tools of the TOC, which is called the dDBR. And sorry for not mentioning the late Dr. Goldratt, who actually was initiated both the TOC and the tool, which is drum buffer O, which is really a practical tool for shortening lead times and increasing the throughput. But the question is it really applicable to this situation when we have two phases of the same process with such differences, which are really quite big? dDBR is a mechanism for having a controlled release of tasks into the system. What do I mean by this? Instead of letting all the cases that do arrive to the court, take it, judge 1, judge 2, and so on. Instead of that, we are keeping the cases until we make sure that the judge has an available capacity to deal with the case. Instead of being on the desk of the judge, it is better being, for instance, on the desk of the registrar or on the desk of the president or vice president of the court, rather than putting it on the desk of the judge itself. So we have to have a mechanism of a controlled, a smart mechanism for releasing the cases to the judges. We need to use a dDBR in order to reduce the number of open cases. The work in process, this is the term that we use it, WIP, number of open cases. You The judge started working on it, but didn't complete it yet. So this is a whip. And traditionally, this dBR was implemented to system where there is one bottleneck that actually is active at one point of the process. And the process is more or less homogeneous. But our case, obviously, is different. And because we have one bottleneck that actually is doing two kinds of jobs. One is a pre-trial meetings, and the other one is the evidence. And it's not homogeneous, and the flow is not laminar in the system. We have iterations. You have more and more sittings, more and more meetings. And we need two different dBR mechanisms for each of these phases. One prerequisite, which is very important, that we have in the system, that the rate of closing is at least a little bit lower than the opening rate. And this was not obvious at first, but once we introduce some improvements, some new procedures, we actually reached, after several months, the situation where, going through the statistics, we could prove that the number of the closed cases in the court is lower than the number of ones that are opened. And how did we do it? You remember we have been discussing the wasted time, the ineffective time, and we introduced the issue of offloading the judge. We introduced, with a really great success, the judge aides, or the way you call it in Lithuania, the judge assistants, and they are really offloading the judge and doing a substantial percentage of the judge work. So both mechanisms that are quite simple to implement had a nice effect, and we were in a situation where the number of closed file in a given period was higher than the new ones. Our target was to reduce the number of open cases on the desk of the judge, and I'm referring mainly to those that are in the evidence phase, from 60 to 5 only. It means a dramatic change. How do we achieve it? We have two dBRs. One is a dBR for the whole system, the entrance to the pre-trials. And who is doing this controlled release? It can be done either by the vice president, for instance, vice president who is the head of the criminal department, or the other one who is on the administrative, and so on and so forth. He is working, and as part of his responsibility is to release in a controlled way the files into the system. We call it a Gator, and he has to make sure that we have files that are introduced into the system with a complete kit. Okay? Otherwise, why give it to the judge if you can really, in a minute, realize or detect that something is missing? And you have also to look at the load of the judges. And the criteria whether to release a file to the judge or not is here. We have three zones in a way. If we look at the judge's calendar, and it's open, of course, to the Gator, the president or the vice president, if the judge is in a situation where the next available slot in the calendar is less than 8 months from now, everything is okay, I can give him a new case. Okay? To start and do the pre-trial meetings. Okay? Understood? If it's the next available slot is something about 8 or to 12 months from now, not so good. It depends. Sometimes yes, I release, sometimes not. But if it's more than 12 months, this is something unacceptable, and you have to do something about it. We called those emergency steps court floor cleanup, just to try to throw a little bit work out of the desk of the judge. How is it possible? It is possible. If it's a crisis, so you have the corporations of all the parties. For instance, situation in the law court, the district court of Tel Aviv. We had a situation, a bad one. So the president told us, we were sitting, we were here discussing situation, said, I have 5 judges that I can rely on. Most of them were obviously women, because women had the tendency to be very practical, tack, tack, tack. And she came to them, do me a favor. It works. Do me a favor, please take, on top of the loads that you usually get, do me a favor and take, let's say, 5 more cases. And they said, yes, no problem. Although they know that their friends will not get the same load, but she said, do me a favor, so why not help him? It works. So in case of crisis, try to do this kind of cleanup, use overtime if it's possible. Sometimes it's not possible, because I can tell you, those judges are crazy. They stay in the court until 6 o'clock, and then they go home with the files, sitting sometimes 10 in the evening, writing verdicts, and so on. I really devoted. I have never seen such a team of devoted persons. But why should they work so hard? We have to find a more sensible way to do it. Now we arrive to the second phase. So who will do the release of cases into the evidence phase? The judge himself. He is the Gator for himself. Whenever we complete a final pretrial session, judge looks at his calendar. Where is the next available slot for this evidence trial? And if it's booked, I'll call you when I have the possibility to hear your evidences. Yeah, that's how it's done. Once he completed the case, 1 or 2, he calls them, let's sit down. You see, let's fix the schedule. Let's put it in our calendars. As I am now free, we'll fix the first evidence hearing, let's say, in 5 months from now. Quite nice, okay? But then, now listen. The next one will be 5 months plus 1 week. The third one will be 5 months plus 2 weeks, and so on. At first, he fixes 4 dates, 4 slots for this, for the continuous hearing of the case. And in most cases, they are done. After, say, modo grosso, let's say after 6 or 7 months, so it's really an improvement in relation to the previous situation. Step number 6 in our methodology is called elevate the constraint. How can I take some of the load of the judge? Let's give it to somebody else. For instance, let's make good use of the legal aids. Legal aids are lawyers. For this reason or another, prefer not to be a judge and wouldn't like to work in a law office. So it's a fine solution for them. Let's make the good use of those legal aids. Legal aids, as you may know, do not get the same salary as a judge. Yes, a little bit lower. In Israel, the ratio is 1 to 10. So it makes sense to hire legal aids, legal assistants, and really give some of the load to them. And you see, they are really doing some significant work. At first, some judges didn't have a tendency to use those as our assistant. What will I be using them for? And whenever there was an issue, we were sitting down with a judge, giving him some idea how he could use it for good causes. And eventually everybody's happy with this. And in the Supreme Court, each judge has at least 2, sometimes 3, 4 assistants under his hand. Results. One of the district courts in Israel reduced the lead time for part of the process by 47%, and in the total life cycle by 27%. In a magistrate court, we have 2 types. In our project, we had 2 types of files. Those road accident, victim compensation, and the torts, and with quite nice improvement, over the range of 3 years, quite nice. And if somebody would tell you, they added judges, on the contrary, the number of judges in this department was reduced at the same time by 17%. So on the total, per judge, you have an increase in throughput of 43%. In the family court, we are right now in the process. We have initial improvements. For instance, this phase until we get to the pre-trial, which typically would take a whole year, is reduced right now to 7 months, and we have a target to reach no more than 4 months, to wait until the first pre-trial session. And the time until the evidence hearing is right now 8, and we'd like to be in the position of having it at 6. But even so, although it's not the final, we didn't reach our target yet it's a nice improvement of having a 45% reduction in the lead time. And you may be aware that this family court is actually the most complicated court in all types of courts. I think that the time is It was a pleasure to be with you, so it was running very fast. So I won't go into the details of how we implemented it. It was a very structured process with the involvement of everybody, starting with the Chief Justice from the head of the Supreme Court up to the secretaries in the court, and every president of a court was actually the champion. He actually led the process himself. And it was very effective, and we got really a nice improvement in the system that, from our experience, having been in so many industry and situations, this was absolutely the most complicated system that we have been working with. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
If somebody has a question, but before that, I have information for the participants of the workshop, for your workshop that is going to be held tomorrow, Law Courts Management, the Focus Management Way. Please note that the venue of the workshop has changed. And now it's in the National Courts of Administration, Sapiegos 15 Vilnius. The information is here. You're going to get the emails, but please note that the place has changed. Yes,
tomorrow.
It's about the tomorrow. And now, if anybody has the question.
So it was so clear that...
Yes.
No, it was not.
Sorry. You said when a case goes into evidence phase, it gets 4 or 5 slots planned in.
Yeah, in advance.
If it turns out it needs more,
then
does it carry straight
they have the priority to get the first available, to squeeze it as much as possible. And also, I didn't tell you about another revolution that we introduced is actually having free slots, weekly slots for the judges to sit down and write their evidences. Why should they take the work to work, like this at home? You get a proper time, and please do it. Don't drag it, until everybody is shouting on you. You finish the trial. Please sit down, do it fast, and in order to give them motivation, the system accepted the concept that we don't want to get dissertations from the judges. No need. It doesn't do any more justice. Please let it be 3 pages. 30 pages is also acceptable. Be very concise, and we have courses. The Law Courts Administration Israel is giving courses to the judges how to write effectively, concisely, and there are more some improvements on these lines. Yes, please.
Just a simple question about what were the frontline judges' reactions to the system? Because from the Polish experience, I represent the Ministry of Justice of the Republic of Poland. The managers, the main judges, they understand the need to change, but the frontline judges often say, "We deliver justice, and we are not interested in the management," as you said before. So what were the reactions, if I may ask?
So we have a deliberate mechanism of implementation. The process started from the initiative of the Chief Justice. And also we brought in, the big calibers, and we gave them a lengthy 6-day seminar, and everybody was convinced, yes. But it took another chief justice, coming, and then she said, I remember the workshop and I want it to be implemented. And it took several years until this moment. and we started to do it very delicately, you know, first of all, sitting and with the presidents of the courts. And then we asked who would like to be the pilot.
Okay,
because
so
we are not forcing.
I understand that
so
it was rather evolution, not
it's an evolution, yes. Yeah, and nothing was enforced on the judges whenever, and eventually nobody said, I don't want it. You might think that, but up front we said, nobody forces you to change the way you are doing because you're autonomous. But everybody was jumping on the wagon, and it's there. A new norm, you know, a new language in the court, and really nice. And now you are free from all this waste, and you can do a real professional job. It's nice. Yes, please.
Did you had this project with first instance courts only, or district courts, I mean, or all the court system?
I mentioned it in one of the first slides. What the project was about district courts. We took the three largest district courts in Israel, and just to have a taste of it, we took also one magistrate court, and then they asked us, please help with a big issue of family courts. So we are also there in one of a central district in Israel, the family court, and also with, as I told you, with nice results, and really everybody is motivated to do the changes. It's not simple because there you have lots of different cases with really, if let's say the content of one case is 1, there are cases that on the same scale are 40. 40, the effort is 40 much as heavy than the other types. So a large scale of different kinds of types of cases. Okay, so this is what we yes, we didn't go to the appeal courts, but actually in Israel, what we have the instance, the higher instance is the appeal for the other one, and then the appeal instance for the district is the Supreme Court. We don't have a separate appeal court like here in Lithuania. And also the Supreme Court does hears those appeals against the actions of the government. Government bodies are also they have the way that those cases are heard are in the Supreme Court, acting as a special court for issues against the government. Thank you again. Okay.